So while we're on the topic of air guns, let's discuss what Daisy was doing mid-60s into the mid-70s. A Model 200. I remember this one fondly from my childhood. Let's take a closer look. Milsurp Garage. Daisy Model 200. Here's what the box says. Here's our instructions. It's kind of cool that the instructions go inside the box, but not many people hold on to the box, so then they lose their instructions. And, there is some kind of pivotal stuff going on over here. Tighten the lanyard ring. Rotate the CO2 container with your thumb until the piercing pin is centered on the CO2 jet cylinder cap. Holding it with your thumb, turn the lanyard ring. A lot of people would say that this guy leaks. I'm wondering if they're following these pretty complicated instructions that are right here. How to adjust the sight. 3 safeties. The gun is safe when the CO2 cylinder is removed. Calling that a safety that's really a stretch. If you remove your hands at the wrist, the gun is safe. Okay, so what do we got here? Let's check it out. By the way, these are the galvanized Daisy pellets. You ever see the BB? Sorry, you ever see these things? They're like zinc plated and galvanized. They were the ones that did that. Weird looking like matte finish to them instead of that shiny gold that you're used to with like the Craftsman stuff or whatever. This is a true BB gun. This didn't fire pellets. This didn't fire anything else. You couldn't load like one at a time either. It had this opening back here. Sorry. Had this opening back here where you loaded them in. Put a whole bunch of them in here. Then you'd manipulate this. It had like a type of magazine that would hold as you shoot. This would get closer and closer to here, and you'd open it up and add more into this like reservoir that's there. Even though it has serrations here, like it has a slide. There's no movement. Nothing moves. It's just you don't have to pump anything. This was CO2, so this is our first CO2. So we've had a spring action. A spring, I guess you'd call it action. Spring action, a pneumatic operated action. And now we have the CO2 action where the CO2 canister, I had it empty around here somewhere, but I can't find it. But the CO2 canister would go in here. Then twisting this lanyard ring here would bring it close to the pin there that would pierce it. And, I remember where they are. I was thinking about actually trying this guy. Would you believe, I could give you the history of how I got this one early, before we even get into Daisy's history. I had one of these when I was a kid, and it was a miserable failure. Like, I don't think I got it new. I think I might have just inherited or traded it for something, something like that when I was a kid. But it was fairly new, and it was this one because I remember the box, and the box looked the same. So this is the early box. They made these from 63 to 76, and this is an early one. So this one is around, I would say this is, if it's not a first year, it's definitely within the first 3 years of manufacture. That's my guess. I'm sure there's experts out there that know. There's a lot of things that you can look to date them by, like whether the end of the barrel here is painted or not, and something that has to do with the way the sight is shaped back here, and all kinds of things and stuff. Other stuff inside here, it has like this embossed oil elevator with the spring, the way that's configured. There's a few different things, and this warning back here for removing this is a sticker on the later ones. there's some like little hints like that where you can date these. And from the best I can look at, that's what I'm coming up with. That this is very early. It's definitely the early box. And also a true sign is that this is how much they cost in when they first came out in the like 63, 64, 5. They were less than $20. They were this price. So that's another way how I could date it. I think I might even have an ad here for it, for that around those years and how much it cost. Well, so like I said, I didn't get it. I didn't get mine new, and it never really sealed well with the canisters. These always had problems. The one I had worked, but even if whether you shot or you didn't shoot within 10, 15 minutes, the CO2 cylinder was dead. So it's kind of like an annoying gun in the respect that I would have to put the CO2 cylinder in there and then just shoot like a madman. Like I'd have to just load it, shoot, just to try to just get my money's worth out of the CO2 cylinder. Because like I said, whether I shot or not, it was like just gradually leaking. I don't think I actually heard it leaking, so it wasn't like that bad. But it within 20 minutes, it was dead no matter what. But there's people like looking now, people now trying to use these that they're just tightening it and it's just leaking all out. Their advertising back then, they called these a sealless design daisy. They were advertised as no O-rings needed. That was such a great thing. However, there's nothing to rebuild. There's nothing if it's leaking, if whatever is worn or whatever is making it where it's not sealing, there's no O-rings to replace. So that's the problem with them. Now there is its successor in '77 was a 1200, and there is a guy online. I mean, it's not recent. This is like old stuff. If you poke around online, you'll find it if you search enough. But there's a guy out there that can retrofit the insides, where the canister seals, the pin, retrofits the one from the 1200 onto this gun. He used to take the guns in and do it and send it back. Then if you look, there's like some kind of weird tutorial online that sort of shows how to do it. But I got a picture here that just shows what it looks like when it's done, but didn't really see much of like I think it's something that you might have to download, or it was on a forum, and when I went to look for it, it was like I didn't have access for some reason. So I don't know why. I don't know if it's just expired or you had to sign on to the forum or what it was. I should just try to put a canister in it right here and see what happens. But what should we cover here? We have patents. Well, here I could show you that online you can't find a disassembly for this thing, which is pretty. If you want to like really get in there and mess around with it, if you put this probably into a Google search, disassembling the Daisy Model 200 pistol, part 1, maybe it'll pop up, because there was a guy online that had this. This just shows if you ever really want to get in there, do a complete disassembly. This was up there thanks to this guy. I didn't really see a name or anything where I could credit him, but give the most credit where credit is due. Oh, I skipped a page here. That's pretty comprehensive, pretty nice pictures, and the guy breaks it down. And I even wrote on the back here, if you ever really want to get adventurous, it's the Daisy Model 1200, where once you get all the way down here and you put it back together, if there's a way to somehow retrofit. What kind of patents do we have? We have G.E. Brawler fluid powered gun. I noticed with a lot of these air guns, I've seen it before, that the description of what it is doesn't say air powered gun, it says fluid. And I think for this type of terminology, that aerodynamics and fluid dynamics are very much the same. So like in the design and the engineering vernacular, when they're talking about something that's air powered. They just call it fluid. Like fluid, it's not liquid powered gun, it's fluid. I think the word fluid covers liquid, air, oil. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't necessarily mean that it is something that is in liquid form just because it says the word fluid. I think back in the day, or to engineers, the word fluid covers liquid, air, like that. So this is definitely the design for this, just for me looking through it and looking at the disassembly stuff. They are talking about this gun. They certainly are. And this was filed in 64 and granted in 66, so even the timeline matches. And it was assigned. The signers were Daisy Manufacturing Company, Rogers, Arkansas, a corporation of Nevada. And there's another one. It's a little older. Automatic fluid powered gun. There's some stuff here also that is included. This patent also by F.D. Hyde. These are cool. These are definitely, if you're into like the patents and reading, I printed this whole one out. Sometimes I just print the pictures and like the head page because I don't really feel like sitting there reading the whole thing or whatever, just to show you guys the pictures. But this one, I printed the whole thing. See how some of these, look at this, it ain't even over. Whole other page. They're like really, really descriptive of exactly how these work. And after a while, you start to get the knack for how they talk, how they describe things, and how they relate one part to the other. And they talk about how, generally this is what's out there. Why are we patenting this? Because ours does this. And then sometimes the patents work off of other patents, so they'll actually refer to other patents that you could look up, and you're allowed to patent something that works off of somebody else's patent. So that's an interesting system where they all kind of build on each other like that. So these are the numbers if you want to check these out. And where do I get these numbers? This is an interesting one. I'll show you. You have to like really do a ton of research to come up with these numbers. So I'll show you how you do that. In a case like this, that's how you do that. You get them right here. They were kind enough to put them right on the side of the gun, and they do that. Once in a while, you actually just find the numbers right there, and that makes it really cool because there's like no question about it what you're dealing with. So let's talk a little bit about Daisy's history. Daisy actually has a real crazy history. This is going to sound like I'm making this up. Daisy was founded in 1882. Kind of wild how old these airgun companies are, right? Like Crossman and Daisy, you wouldn't think that, Founded in 1882 by a watchmaker inventor named Clarence Hamilton. Now, Daisy Outdoor Products was the company that was formed in 1882, originally as Plymouth Iron Windmill Company. And this guy was an inventor, this Clarence Hamilton. He invented a type of windmill. I'm not going to just totally break it down and get into it here. This isn't the windmill channel, but it is interesting if you want to take a look. He invented some kind of windmill that doesn't have vanes, the typical vanes like a windmill would have. It was supposed to be very efficient and work really well, but the parts were very heavy. It was a cumbersome thing to move around. And the windmill part of the company was struggling. But he also had an air gun manufacturing thing like around the corner. So starting in 1888, they started bundling a BB gun with each windmill purchase as a sales promotion. That sounds like the craziest thing in the world, that a BB gun would put someone over the edge on buying some experimental kind of newfangled vaneless windmill that sounds like a huge expenditure. And then like the deal would be you would put the guy over the edge with a pulling a BB gun out of the trunk of your car. I don't know, that was a little crazy, but let me tell you, as crazy as something like that sounds, in 1895 they changed the name to Daisy Manufacturing Company and switched to making only air guns. That's how popular these air guns were. So you call me crazy, that worked. And and the story goes that somebody picked up one of the air guns, shot it, and said, "That's a Daisy." I guess back in the late 1800s, that might have been slang for that something was really cool. Who was this? It was general manager. So it's Plymouth Air Rifle Company was the name of these BB guns. Plymouth Air Rifle Company, to compete with the Markham Challenger, a new type of wooden spring-powered air gun shooting BB-sized round shot invented by William Markham, though some argued that the real inventor was George W. Sage. This is some complicated stuff right here, ladies and gentlemen. They manufactured by the Markham Air Rifle Company just across the Chesapeake and Ohio Railway. On March 6, 1888, Hamilton approached the Windmill Company board with an all-metal airgun design of his own and sought to use the factory blast furnaces to mold stamp the metal parts necessary to build the gun. General Manager Lewis Howe test-fired the gun and exclaimed, "Boy, it's a Daisy." And the new gun was named the Daisy BB gun. The board of the Windmill Company then decided to offer the gun as a bundled premium item to every farmer who purchased a windmill. This began many years of intense competition between Plymouth and Markham, who responded by introducing their metal Chicago in 1888 and King in 1890 model BB guns. However, Plymouth's marketing strategy was much better, and by 1900, 15% of their sales revenue was being spent on posters and magazine space, with the net result of such intensive promotion being to make Daisy virtually a household word, while Markham paid little effort on advertising. The Daisy BB guns continued to outsell its competitors, and by 1895, its sales and popularity had grown to the point that the Plymouth Company ceased the manufacture of windmills, began producing air guns exclusively, and the board voted to change the company name to Daisy Manufacturing Company. Don't forget, the Red Ryder BB gun. It's most popular gun. It's the longest in production. The longest air gun in production. In production since its introduction in 1940. And that's still around. They did have this huge lawsuit that could be interesting to talk about. That I'll talk about this one other thing. Their history. I'll end their history way back there in around the turn of the century. And if you want to know about Daisy's whole history leading up all the way till now, go take a look. But just the beginnings of the company, being that it was a windmill company bundling air guns with their purchases, is something that you tell people and they'd be like, "This guy is crazy," but it's real. That's real. It was 1999. I remember this. They were sued by a Pennsylvania teenager, John Tucker Mahoney, was accidentally shot in the head in May of 99 when a friend fired one of their BB guns at him, believing it to be empty. This was like the beginning of these crazy kinds of lawsuits. It's like somebody pointed a gun at somebody else, fired it, thinking it was empty. And I guess it had enough power to go into the this poor kid's brain. He ended up brain damaged and in a vegetative state. Terrible tragedy, but is there any accountability for the friend who pointed a gun at him and pulled the trigger? Thinking it was empty is Daisy's fault. I don't know. Crazy. The lawsuit alleged that the company hid manufacturing defects, specifically the BB gun's jamming, and demanded that the gun in question be recalled. The company settled the lawsuit with Mahoney's family for $18 million in a case that received worldwide publicity. And unfortunately, John Mahoney died of his injuries in 2003. A terrible tragedy, but this was the beginnings of handgun, like any types of gun manufacturers, whether it was guns, BB guns, air gun, whatever it was, for being responsible for other people's irresponsibility. I mean, I think pointing a gun at somebody and pulling the trigger shouldn't be done whether you think the gun, even if the gun was empty, you shouldn't do that, right? So how is Daisy liable for any situation where you're pointing a gun at somebody and pulling the trigger? Crazy story, but that's another thing. You could do a whole video on that story, I'm pretty sure. Daisy. Yeah. Mine did not work, and I don't want to put a CO2 cartridge in this thing because if it doesn't hold air, I'm going to feel terrible. This way, I'm not really sure. I'm never really sure if it's going to work or not. I might try it if I had a place to shoot it. Like, I don't know, maybe I'll take it to the range one day and we'll do a video just on that. Does the Daisy Model 200 work? I also have this. To try to date them, you could use these lot numbers and serial numbers. There's a way to do it using these interesting lot numbers. There's a lot of information here. Unfortunately, mine is old enough where it doesn't have any of this. With a lot number, I think it would be somewhere down here. There's no lot number. There's nothing. And the only thing I found that I could maybe use as some kind of number to try to do some kind of dating is on the box, way up here in the corner of the box, there's a number. I don't know if that means anything. And when I took off, not this grip pops right off because that's where the CO2 cartridge goes, but this grip, I had to take it off with the screw. And it had a 3-letter code back. It was EBH, I think it was back here. But I couldn't find anything in this literature here that had anything to do with that EBH. But you could take a look here. This is compiled by Dave Albert and Gary Garber. And like I said, you use the titles of these things and you do like a Google search and you should be able to find it. If you have one of these and you want to try to use these lot numbers, see, this is like effective in 72. You know, I think I'm way earlier than that, so that's why I'm going to have a problem. And yeah, so how does this thing shoot? Don't remember. I really don't. I barely used it as a kid. But what happened was when it finally died, I mean, when it was just, it was leaking where I was just like, that's it, I'm not using it anymore. I remember that if this screw was taken out, this part kind of slid back and forth on here where it was almost like the slide, where almost like you could pull this back and go and like kind of cock it like that, like how a real gun would work. So this became my like cops and robbers gun, whatever. I had this in a holster that I would just use it as like a play gun, you know what I mean? And it was kind of cool that the slide cycled. That I remember. And I could swear I have that around somewhere. I could swear that I had saved it and it's in some bin or bag or box or something shoved away somewhere. I looked around a little bit to see if I could actually come up with it, but I couldn't. And this one, how did I come up with this one in the box like this and everything? As usual, when it comes to these things, somebody came to me and said, hey, I was doing something. It's always like work in someone's house. I know a lot of people that do. I know a guy that does roofing. I know a plumber. I know a guy that does the HVAC. Like I have friends that do this kind of work. And they always have people that go like, hey, I heard you're interested in this or whatever. It's like for whatever reason, just talking about something, just and they'll just go like, "Oh, hey, you know what I got over here? You want to take it? Take it. You know, you want it?" And then they just take it, and they know that I'm interested in this stuff, so they just give it to me. So I've ended up with a few like this. You know what I mean? And I've given away a few in my day also. This one stuck around because it was mine as a kid, and that's the Daisy CO2 200, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, see, it's a short one. Finally, a short one. I mean, look, no O-rings needed, right? Constant full power. Yeah, right. Also accommodates, right? So it actually had an adapter. They don't have a picture of it here, do they? Maybe this is it. Is that the adapter G? Well, so what they had was they had an adapter here that you would put in here, and you could use the smaller CO2 cartridges. So it took up a little bit of space. It was like a spacer right here. So they had these smaller CO2 cartridges you could use as well. Yeah, I really should try it. I really should. Who knows? Maybe it's I mean, it's in the box. This thing is like so unused. Maybe I had read that this whole seal-less thing, this O-ring-less thing, was relying on the way the cylinder, the type of metal that was in the top of the CO2 cylinder, and the way the pin was shaped, the way the top of the cylinder was shaped, because they had a very specific way that they were. And then through the years, things kind of changed. The way they produced them, the way they produced that little cap that goes on top. Let me see if I could. Let's see, I pull some out here. I got them right over here. So I'll get some just to take a look at. So these are Crossman power lits, and these are old. So that's why I think maybe these would work. But the way this cap, see, it looks like kind of like a bottle cap. And the way this cap was put on here, and the shape of this top part was integral into how this thing functioned without the O-rings. And that through the years, they kind of changed the way they did this. And that's what would make them immediately leak. That this metal wasn't as malleable as it used to be. That kind of thing. And these are old. I'll tell you, these really are. And there's only one missing from this box. So, you know, what would be the big deal if we gave it a try? But I don't want to load it up here, and then I can't do anything here with it. So I'm going to hold off, and maybe we'll make another one of these range videos when we build up enough interesting stuff to mess around with. And this will be one of those things we mess around with. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the Daisy Model 200. And we're not done with the air guns. No, we are not. So stay tuned, and I'll see you soon with a nice big air gun surprise later.